Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Press Box. I'm Tariq Spence, filling in for Bill Puckle this week. As always, we talk sports. Kevin Oklobzija, good to talk to you again, Kevin.
Great to be here.
And as always, Pat Duffy. Now, listen, is that not just a Grizzlies jacket you have on, but a Vancouver Grizzlies jacket you have on?
This would be the very first Vancouver Grizzlies warm-up jacket. It's got the Kachina and everything. This is like my favorite thing ever. I love this jacket. Come on.
How come this is the first time we've ever seen it?
Because I always pull out something new every week. You know my collection, Tariq. It's kind of what I do. It's like my calling card. I don't have talent. I need to rely on my jersey collection to impress people.
But if you love it so much, we would have seen it before. All right, I'll leave that one alone. I'll leave it alone. Let's switch first to the NFL. A lot of false positives in the NFL this week. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it. First, I'll start with you, Kevin. Going forward, false positives with multiple teams in the NFL. 77 of them have been tested thus far.
Yeah, I'm more worried about false negatives. The false positives are a concern, and they're popping up throughout the country in normal everyday tests for people. And the medical experts have warned about false negatives. So the NFL, has an issue, and the Bills certainly do. They were hit by it, Josh Allen included, with false negative tests. They have them retested in their own facility. Oh, we're fine. That's great, but I'm trying to figure out how many people actually are positive as the league goes forward and now may be spreading as well. The testing is not perfect, and we're finding that out.
Well, what about the testing? I mean, here we are, how many weeks away from the start of the NFL season, and we've got players we're not even sure have it or not, and they're continuing to practice? Pat?
I'm not sure what else you could do.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. So Pat, we have false negatives. We have players concerned, multiple teams now involved. I mean, we're very close to the start of the season here. This is a big concern.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, what happens when you get to week one and you have a false positive or two amongst teams? What if one of those players is a major player on your team? Kevin brings up a great point about false negatives. I guess I was naive in thinking that there was some lab in every NFL city that was taking care of this for them, right? Like, I just assumed that the test went on a van, they drove them down the street, and they took care of them. The fact that these things are being shipped out of state for most NFL teams is a little bit concerning. And now I would also be worried that when you get these positive tests, that because you had these false alarms for 77 NFL players, that these teams are going to take the positive tests a little less seriously for the sake of competitive advantage. And we've been here before, right? It's a legitimate problem. And if you are having problems this close to the start of the season, what are you supposed to do to remedy it? You might be stuck here.
It might alter a team's schedule. It might alter a team's season if they have a false negative or a false positive. Either way, going forward, and affect you, because the NFL, is week to week.
What will the NFL? Will the NFL be as flexible as Major League Baseball is, where the Marlins have had games postponed? The Yankees, there must be 10 teams that have lost games to positive tests, and they've rescheduled doubleheaders and they've moved them. So does that happen with the NFL? All of a sudden, you're going to have a game on a Wednesday night that was supposed to be the Saturday before, whatever day it was supposed to be scheduled.
Well, but the problem with that is it's not like you can play a doubleheader in the NFL. Heck, you can't play an NFL game 6 days before the last NFL game. So in that scenario, you could have an NFL season that goes 23, 24 weeks, and then you start getting the playoffs?
They have a game Sunday and then play on Thanksgiving. I mean, that's happened for, and there are some other quirks with the other Thursday night games. So they could do it. I just don't know if they'll be flexible and there's no fans to worry about. So as long as the network is on board with it, then it's easy to do. If you don't have any fans, you're not worried about refunding tickets, rescheduling a game in that regard. It's pretty easy to do as long as, NBC or whoever says, yeah, we'll do it.
But in that nightmare scenario, let's say, because you're going to have to wait 2 weeks, right, with the positive test, with the things going through teams, at least 2 weeks. So you would have to be rescheduled at the end of the season. So think about a scenario where you have a team that is 3 games back of a playoff spot, that is 3 makeup games left to do, and they'll be playing 3 of those games in, 16, 18 days right before they have to play a playoff game? I mean, Kevin, it's doable, but it's a nightmare. And
it is. There's no question it is. But I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Are they flexible? Do they just cancel the game and then they just go on percentages like baseball is going to have to do?
We'll wait and find out as the season approaches. Coming up next, the Buffalo Bills action has an issue over the fans. You're watching the Rochester Press Box.
Original Bay Goodman Pizza, located on the corner of North Winton at Browncroft. There are 3 ways to get the original Bay and Goodman delivery. Go to baygoodman.com.
This is the Rochester Press Box. I'm Tariq Spence filling in for Bill Pucko. Of course, Kevin Oklobzija and Pat Duffy here. All right, Pat, I'll start with you. A lot coming out of the head coach for the Buffalo Bills, Sean McDermott. He is not happy with this whole thing in Miami. The Dolphins, I guess, would have about 13,000 fans for their first game of the season, whereas the Bills cannot have fans in the stadium for the first 2 home games of the season as of yet. He's more mad at the NFL right now.
Yeah, he's upset with the commissioner. Look, this is the first time I think we've ever seen Sean McDermott mad off of the football field. And I was like taken aback. It's like when you've dated a woman for a little while and then you get in your first fight. It's like, oh, whoa. I'm sorry. I apologize for what happened. But he's absolutely right. Like, the NFL is a league of conformity and uniform, right? Like, they have guys that watch these games with binoculars to find people that are wearing socks an inch too high or an inch too low, and they will call the teams during the game to say, fix it. Yet, you're going to allow some stadiums to have fans and some stadiums not to. It's not even the crowd noise you have to worry about. It's the game presentation in general. There is a difference when you're playing in front of somebody as to when you're not playing in front of somebody. And I get that the NFL, look, if the NFL steps in and says no fans across the board, it's going to be looked at as a political statement. Everything is a political statement now. The NFL doesn't want to get their hands dirty. But you're a billion-dollar industry. You own a day of the week. There's nothing wrong with having a spine and making things uniform throughout the NFL.
Kevin, should the NFL step in here and say, hey, Miami, if Buffalo can't have fans, you can't have fans either?
I don't know I mean, it is an odd dynamic where you're playing a home game and there's no noise. I mean, you could pump in noise, play music, whatever, but it is strange. Now you go on the road and all of a sudden the team you're playing has that a bit of an advantage. Granted, it's not a full stadium, but it is odd. And I'm not sure, as Pat says, this is a league that is all about uniformity, and the fact that they're allowing now, granted, not every stadium's the same size. Some have played in domes. There's different noise levels. You know, the Vikings had a great advantage in the Metrodome, and some, but it's very, very odd that you would have, 20,000 fans in some stadium perhaps and nothing in Buffalo. So I don't know what they do.
So there is a little bit of a benefit for the Bills here. I'm sorry, Tariq, to cut you off.
No. Go ahead.
Okay, so, the Bills made the announcement earlier this week that, the first 2 home games will not have fans in Buffalo. That's fine. But it leaves open the opportunity, especially if this season goes the way we all hope it's going to go, that the most important games and potentially a home playoff game would be able to happen. You can use teams like Miami and Jacksonville and Tampa Bay, teams that are going to have fans in the stands. It's research, right? Like, if they're able to pull this off and not have any problems or mistakes or major issues, it's a check mark in the box as to why the Bills can have fans in December and January when the games really matter. And if there's a legitimate problem that shows up, well, now any argument you had about having fans in the stands, it's gone, and it's the folks in Florida that are dealing with it, not the folks in Western New York.
Oh, that's definitely a way to look at it. Now, I know, Duffy, you do not like preseason quotes, but Micah Hyde says in the 4 years he's been with the Buffalo Bills that this is the most competitive camp he's ever been with. So that's our quote for the week. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, okay, so like when he has a bad day, does he come out and say this is the worst day we've ever had in the history? Come on, man, it's preseason football. Cole Beasley, wow, his team's going to be really good this year. Of course he's going to say that. It's preseason football. Everyone's getting excited. By the way, you're only seeing each other. At this point, we would have seen a couple of preseason games from every NFL team. We would have been able to judge for ourselves. And what is the most competitive training camp practice that they've ever had since he's been in Buffalo? I don't even know what that means. Come on, Tariq, you're better than that. You know better than that.
Did you believe
back to the old when Bill's camp was at Fisher and people would always say, "Oh, how'd they look today?" "Oh, they look great. They're 7-on-7. They're playing against each other. They don't have pads and they don't hit, but they looked great."
Well, tune in next week for the Bills practice quote of the week that I'll hit Duffy with. That'll make him go crazy. We're Rochester Press Box coming up next, like it or not.
Here's the Press Box trivia question brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390. Here's the Press Box Trivia answer, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
This is the Rochester Press Box. I'm Tariq Spence, filling in for Bill Pucko, Kevin Oklobzija, Pat Duffy here as well. All right, so the Pittsburgh Penguins have decided they've acquired a big player from Toronto, Kasperi Kapenen. All right, Pat, how big is this trade for two teams?
I'll tell you why it's big. It's big because Toronto now is admitting that they have no way to make their roster work without shedding legitimate players. Kasperi Kapenen can play. That guy's a player. And they gave him up for almost nothing. I mean, former Rochester American and Sabres castoff Evan Rodriguez was a legitimate part of this deal, along with a pick and another player. Toronto is in a heck of a lot of trouble. And I had the biggest Grinch-like smile when I saw this trade come across social media the other day. Because, I mean, look, they got a pick back, but they also wasted a pick to get rid of a contract in Patrick Marleau last season that they're not going to be able to use. I mean, Kevin, this is kind of, we're getting desperate in Toronto, right? That's the situation?
They had to pay a lot of guys a lot of money, and now it's catching up to them. So they have to shed contracts, like you said. How about, so Erod demanded playing time when he was in Buffalo when he got benched. Imagine what he can do in Toronto now. I was traded for Kasperi Kapenen. You got to play me. I'm trying to figure out, how are they making trades? The playoffs are going on. Like, what is the NHL doing allowing trades this time of year? I don't get it. Like, Boston, maybe they would have been in on the deal. Well, they can't because they're still playing. This is bizarre to me.
Well, hold on. Wait a minute. We're all in backwards land here in NHL. We've never seen anything like this before. The teams
I get it, but shouldn't you wait till the playoffs are over?
Okay, but then you're going to put these teams that have been sitting around. Look, the teams that have been sitting around forever are already at a disadvantage for next season. I say let it happen. I'm enjoying watching these deals go down. And by the way, I'm fine with the teams that are already in the playoffs.
Sabres have been at a disadvantage for like 10 years.
Okay, see, like I knew this was coming because you always want to be cranky and be a rain cloud, and that's fine. You be a rain cloud over with your horse picture in the background. Here's what I'm going to tell you. I am fine with the good teams not getting better. I mean, I'm fine with parity in this league. If you look at the playoffs the last couple of years, it's been a lot of the same teams. Let the teams on the lower end get a little bit better, figure out what they're doing, and let's play some hockey next season.
24 years old. That's how old Kapenen is. All right, the deadline for trading, speaking of trades for Major League Baseball, is Monday. Do you make a move during this time of the season when you only play in about 50, 30 more games left?
I mean, why wouldn't you, right? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Kevin, after you.
I mean, I don't, because it's two guys get hurt, you're probably done anyway. So I don't think you give up just – now, it depends who you are. I mean, in a short season, and let's go back a few years, whatever. Whatever year you want to look at. 60 games in, there are a lot of teams that looked like they were great, and by August, were out of it. So a 60-game season, yeah, you can make the playoffs, add an arm, whatever, or add a bat, and suddenly you might be the favorite or at least be able to contend. But are you going to win the World Series? Is that one player going to put you over the top when there are some premier teams right now? I don't know. I don't see teams making a big deal.
Do you hold them? Do you hold them or do you fold them?
I would make the opposite argument, right? Like if you're playing such a short season, if that one player gets hot for 10 or 15 games and is a difference in half of those games, you have a legitimate advantage. I mean, why not mess with the roster and see what happens here? I guess my only concern would be if I'm taking a player from a city across the country as they're playing in this semi-bubble that they're trying to play in a Major League Baseball, am I bringing in a potential medical issue to my team? But no, I mean, make a move. If you're in middle of the pack here and you're running out of time, why the hell not?
Well, as long as you're not disrupting, if you think your team is good, then fine, that makes sense. If you know you're not that good, you want to give up future assets when you've been rebuilding anyway, I don't think you go for it this year and disrupt what may have been your plan that had 3, 5, 6 years before it would come to fruition.
I say little to no trades. I say you go with what you got for now and then play out the rest of the season and then go into the offseason restructuring again and hoping for a different season in 2021. That's the way I look at it. But for a lot of teams that are out of it already, like my New York Mets, that's what I would do. This is the Rochester Press Box. Unfinished Business coming up next.
now to Eichel. He floated one. Score!
This is the Rochester Press Box. I'm Tariq Spence filling in for Bill Pucko. Unfinished business. Pat Duffy always leads us off.
So I haven't seen you guys since the NBA draft lottery happens, and this is an apology to Tariq for his Knicks not landing in the top 3, but actually barely landing in the top 10, falling down to number 8. It's sad for Knicks fans. It's fantastic for the National Basketball Association, because let's be real. What about the Knicks franchise makes you think that if you had a blue chip top 3 draft pick show up in the city of New York, that would help that team? It's not. The Knicks aren't going to be better because they have a single player that shows up, a LaMelo Ball, what everyone was hoping for, right? It would only ruin that player. And that's another player that could be a face for the NBA that would be gone forever. The Knicks are past the point of fixing, right? It's past the point of free agency, couple of guys coming in because they're never going to come. And if you win the lottery, sure, maybe you get a couple of guys past their prime that want to play with a kid and get the bright lights of New York, but the team's not going to get any better. The only thing that helps the Knicks, the only thing is James Dolan being gone. And how long are we going to have to sit and wait until someone up top in the NBA looks at the situation and goes, wait a minute, we have an historic team with a ton of legends that still want to be around in the largest media market in the world. And the only thing that's keeping them from being relevant is a man that doesn't want to spend money, a man that wants to sit in his castle, and a man that wants to play his guitar with his friends in his crappy band. I'm sorry, Knicks fans. The only way your team gets better is by subtraction.
So I didn't know how this NHL season was going to work out, but I have found it awesome. There's nothing better than waking up. Well, not waking up, but a 3 o'clock game in the afternoon and a playoff game at that. And then you go to a 5:30 game and then a 7 or 8 o'clock game and then a 10:30. It is nonstop hockey at its finest. I didn't know if the NHL was going to be able to pull this off. I didn't know how the COVID positive tests would impact the game and impact teams. They haven't had an issue with that. It's been phenomenal. The NHL doesn't get things right very often. They got this right.
For the process and the situation in Philadelphia with the 76ers, I have to thank Jimmy Butler. Why? Well, Jimmy Butler played for the Philadelphia 76ers and only played about 55 games. And in that time, you were able to find out exactly whether or not he wanted to stay a part of that process. He left and went to Miami. They're doing extremely well. Meantime, Philadelphia is out in the first round, and the Miami Heat are advancing and could get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Jimmy Butler was on a podcast with former teammate J.J. Redick and basically said the problem in Philadelphia was he didn't know who was in charge. In a team of that much talent, not knowing who and what the process is and who's leading the process is what led to Jimmy Butler's exit. Where does he go? Miami, and they excel. It looks like they could do very well in the Eastern Conference, if not possibly make it to the finals. But it was Jimmy Butler, the man who fought his way out of Chicago, fought his way out of the Minnesota Timberwolves, and then found a home with the most talent and realized the leadership wasn't right. He decided to go to Miami, and look how well they're thriving. You need leadership, Philadelphia. I'm not sure what you're going to do after you fired your head coach. I'm not sure what you're going to do when your GM says you're not going to get rid of Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. But the process could work. It just doesn't work when you don't have the proper leadership. That's this week's Rochester Press Box. And I want to say Duffy was absolutely right about my New York Knicks, as painful as it was.
Well, you say that. When am I not absolutely right about everything I say on this show?
And now, Kevin, you can now interrupt me and decide when Duffy is wrong on every other subject but that one.
He's on a roll. Let him go.
Oh, come on. I can't believe that. Well, thank you, Kevin, for joining us this week. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And, of course, Duffy, I'll talk to you next week.
Hey, anything I can do for you, Tariq, you let me know, buddy. I'm here.
And thank you for those watching. This has been the Rochester Press Box. Bill Puckle will return soon. Don't worry. But thanks for watching.